like to call the September 11th, 2018 meeting order. Oh,
Did I make it? Did I make it?
yeah.
Just under the wire.
I made it on time. There's a first for everything. Yes. How are you all? Good, yeah.
Yeah,
How are you guys?
Just as a comment, I have 5 o'clock, I have to be outside the building at 5 o'clock to meet my wife with the kids and do a kid transfer. So if we run long, I'm going to be handing it to you.
Okay, that sounds good. I will do my best. They're large shoes.
Hopefully we'll run short.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have has everyone seen the draft agenda?
Right.
Can we get a motion to approve and
Call to order at 3:33 p.m.
call order 333?
Thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda as it is?
I second.
All in favor, vote aye. Unanimous. Does anybody have anybody here for public comment? So I guess we're on to staff report.
Okay. As Crystal goes for herself around.
Yeah, sorry about that, Laura. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries.
All right. I don't think I sent quite as much stuff out to you guys as I usually do in between meetings. But let's go through it. So the first thing was, and I'm sorry I have a really hard time seeing this because it's pretty tiny on my screen. I sent you the final approved agenda from the last meeting. Oops. I'll let you know I posted on the website. And then for your reference, a summary of the last Toxics Board meeting. And then letting you know that the video has been formatted and posted on the website as well from the last Toxics Board meeting. Business update that 2 of the businesses that have up to this point been in the program, Custom Craftworks and Helitech, doing business as Dart Aerospace, have relocated outside the city limits, so they are no longer in the program. Letting you know that the orientation for this year for all boards and commissions members is coming up October 1st. They have a new refreshed menu for it, and even if you guys have been before, I highly encourage you to register and go, because it's full of really good information and you get to meet all the other members on all the other 12 boards and commissions that the city has. So it's kind of a cool networking opportunity. And then you get to hear directly from people like the city attorney about basic laws that you need to kind of keep in mind as you do your work. So highly encourage you to do that. Industry position 1, still vacant, and as of this morning, we have no more applicants. I had a conversation with the economic development manager for the Eugene Chamber to see if he can help us do some outreach. I always keep them in the loop on the announcements, and then if need be, I give them a call and say, hey, can you do some individual outreach? So they're going to help us do that. Probably in a couple weeks, I'll send out another notification. And if anybody has any ideas, I mean, this is a very specific position with specific requirements, so kind of have a small audience. I know Dawn's done some outreach, and you've talked to a few people, Mark, but
Talked to a few people too. Nobody's excited on the industry, and I'm like, come on. Like,
no, nobody's excited. So anyway, until we, get some applicants that meet those basic requirements, position will just be vacant.
It's just for those that are in the program that do report, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Is there a possibility that those that don't report but are in the program?
I like non-reporting.
Right.
They are not eligible to serve on the board. I mean, the city council, I guess, could make an exception, but generally speaking, no, those people would not be qualified.
I just brought that up because it's been an open position for quite a while.
Yeah, since early May.
That would require, on a, not purely an exception level, but on a longer term level, it would require a change to the program, which would require that rather lengthy process we talked about earlier.
Correct, 'cause
Yeah, one of the lengthy processes. Yeah. Exactly. So, any ideas, send them my way, and any efforts you guys put out there to help me with outreach, I appreciate as well. New email addresses for City of Eugene employees, much shorter, so that's exciting. When I give out my email address, I don't have to say, can you get out 20 pieces of paper, please? And I just wanted to notify you guys, just in case you saw that shorter email address, like, didn't think it was a spam or something. Oh, and that's it.
Chris, we forgot introductions.
We sure did.
So, Mark Kruger, industry representative, and
Crystal Abrams, environmental and citizen representative advocate.
Don Egan, industry advocate.
Nicole Patterson, also a community advocate.
Andre Phelps, neutral position.
Aaron Chinkin, citizen advocate. What is it? Citizen, community? What are we?
Advocate.
Is it a crisis of identity?
Advocate.
Public advocate. There you go.
Public advocate, there you go.
Rockstar. That's what
Nice.
I don't say that out loud usually. It's fine. Yeah.
And I'm Joe Epley staff. All right. So that's it for staff report, unless anybody has any questions.
I guess that puts us on to the first item for discussion and decision, which is that actually, this list went out, what, June?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah, it was a pretty big list.
Has anybody read all the way through it?
I did. I read all the way through it.
Thank you.
This is a 133-page memorandum.
It
Yep.
was a lot.
That's
It
Yeah.
took a long
Yes.
time. But yeah, I don't have a copy on me though. Did anybody bring extra copies? No.
I mean, I have it up here on the screen, but I can't show all 133 pages at once.
But to sort of turn it into a short TLDR, right? Too long didn't read. Most of it was additional names for substances and the characteristics.
Yes.
Right? That was the primary. We weren't really adding or changing. We weren't adding or removing. We were adding information to the existing set. Correct.
Right, or updating it.
That's what I understood as
Yeah.
well.
Mostly except for there's two chemicals that I somehow missed in the last round.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But we can take one step at a time, so I just didn't want you guys to forget about one part. So yes, but the first list of 75 is just kind of, updating little things here, little bits of information here and there about a chemical.
Yeah, and these were all things you found on a federal list somewhere? Or how, is that accurate or no?
Yeah, so once a year, I usually get done with it earlier than June, but there's not a lot in that, so. I review all of these lists at the federal level, and make sure that the Eugene Talkers Right to Know list is consistent
Mm-hmm.
with those lists, because those are the lists that are connected to our program.
And that's what these changes reflect? Okay, cool, that's right.
Awesome. So these are the discrepancies that I found between Eugene Talkers Right to Know program list and those lists.
And you have to check all of those? Those different programs, they don't just have an updated, they don't say this is what we've updated?
I am on a couple
Listservs,
listservs for some of them. And each time, since I do it annually, I kind of do a different type of screening every year. And this was just a little bit more detailed.
I know federal documents, they'll put in the register notice of change. So you look those up specifically.
Yeah, it's a lot of work though to go through to see the updates and how it probably corresponds to our own lists.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's even more tedious when I have to manually update our list, which is going to be nice, hopefully.
Oof.
But it's important to be accurate, so I'm happy to do it.
She involved a student in that data entry process to provide them valuable experience in real world applications.
That's a really good idea.
Are there any questions regarding those 75 items? Concerns?
Not for me.
Does anyone want to move to adopt those, adopt the changes as Joe has suggested?
I move.
You move to,
I move to second that motion to adopt all these changes to the reportable chemicals.
Do we go to a vote now?
I think so. You were moving what you said, right?
That's correct.
I read his mind.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
we have a
yes.
telepathic thing.
Is anybody unclear as to what we're voting on? Okay, let's vote.
I'll vote for it.
Vote to adopt.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All opposed?
All opposed? Thank you.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? I think the motion passed unanimously. Excellent.
Joe, does the discussion usually come after the motion before the vote?
Yeah, but I just want to.
Yes, okay.
I mean, you kind of asked for it first.
Yeah.
And Joey,
It's a little confusing. Usually it goes past the motion and then the discussion and then the vote.
Okay. Procedural thing. Okay, thank you.
And as a side note, if you had a description of the sorts of tasks you were interested in completing, like a synopsis of like, I could have access to the listservs for like environmental studies or other listservs on campus that I can just email and say if there's a grad student or another student that might, I mean, there's a trade-off around is it how much time it takes to train the person to what you get out of it, but if there is a time when you think appropriate to have some, student come in who could process this data, then let me know and I can forward that out and deal with that.
Okay, well, I mean, we should talk about that as a group at the toxics board.
Okay.
Yeah, the toxics board level. And if you guys all decide as a group that you want me to start looking into coming up with a list of stuff that I think interns can take care of, I can do that.
So I think that brings us to our second item, right?
No, the second part of the first item,
Oh.
where these are potential additions to the list of reportable chemicals. And how that process works, it becomes a recommendation to the city manager, who then takes it through an administrative rule process, where he posts it for public comment for 15 days after he receives the Toxics Board's recommendation, for example, to add these to the list. And then, depending on if he receives feedback on, like if there was a big uproar about we shouldn't add these, then he would come back to you and ask for more information. And if he didn't receive, any feedback or only positive feedback, then he would likely approve it with an administrative order. And then that would be my direction to, at that point, update the list by adding these two on. And then I would include that in the communication to the reporting businesses at the end of the year.
And this addition is like standard operating practice for the board based on EPA like additions.
No, city policy and procedures.
Okay. So the next process would be for us to vote on approval of these two chemicals to the list.
To vote to either add or not add.
Okay. Can I move to? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're doing exactly what I was expecting. I was hoping for. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know what the language is, but do we want to have discussion prior to voting on?
If I understand correctly, we should move to vote.
Okay.
Second, and then we can have the discussion.
Okay. So what's the language? I move to request these two recommend
to the city
to the city manager that we add these two chemicals to the toxics board list of chemicals, something like that.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay. Discussion on those two?
I don't know these chemicals.
Well,
Yeah, Dawn, Mark, y'all are the chemists. Do you have any reason to not add these to the list?
Fluorine molecules, that's bad. Phenol, that's bad.
interesting because you look at the characteristics section, right? And the first one, the non-phenols, is C, which typically tells you it's a corrosive,
Mhm.
right? And so it's probably a biological corrosive
Yeah.
of some kind. And the next one down, the tetrafluoroethylene, I is ignitability, so that means they're adding it because it's flammable.
That's sort of surprising.
Well,
I mean-
ethylene, right?
Well, no, not that it's flammable, but that's the reason they're adding it. I mean, I guess it's just dangerous.
Well, it was added.
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory of why this was added to the city list that you were looking at to recommend this? Because from my understanding, this was added to a bigger list that we're just matching. Is that correct?
The next one over, source list, tells you that it's Sarah 313, which is a
2015, so that's, okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
so,
you are correct, yeah, because
Okay.
both of these come from EPA's list of lists, and the last update was in 2015.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always in favor of matching what the EPA says, and I trust you 100% to find those little things for us. And from what these two gentlemen are saying, it sounds like
Shouldn't drink it.
we should just go ahead and add it anyway.
Also, it's a suspect cancer hazard.
Oh.
Yeah, it is,
Okay.
tetrafluoro.
yeah, tetrafluoroethylene.
Hmm.
Kidney damage. Sounds pretty.
Does anybody know who uses these? Does anybody even use these? Do we know?
I'm not a synthetic chemist.
So we would know from the City of Eugene Toxics Right to Know reporting because they wouldn't have been on the list yet.
Mhm.
There's a possibility you could look at something like the State Fire Marshal's report or given the ignitability and corrosivity characteristics, it'll show up on somebody's SARA 313 reporting.
Mhm.
Having said that,
Isn't that based on a certain volume, no?
yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
if they have a small quantity, you wouldn't see it, but
But anything over that quantity those get reported.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It sounds like it gets pretty, it heats up when it decomposes, which might be why it's dangerous.
so reactive,
Yeah.
exothermic decomposition, well, neutral.
Joe, can you explain why that first one says only, or the non, yeah, why it says only, includes only 6 chemicals, or are there six separate chemicals that are those phenols, or is it a group? Or is it in the, what, anybody know what that means?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's that CAS number.
Well, the CAS number is a group identifier for the SARA 313 when they have a whole series of compounds under one 313 listing, like zinc compounds, for example, they'll give it an N number. Non-phenol, so there's 7 somethings attached to the phenol group.
Yeah.
So there's probably a whole series
Non
of
is 9.
isomers.
Non.
Oh, sorry, I apologize, 9. And so there's probably a whole series of different chemical structures associated, at which point, yeah, there's probably some of them that are far nastier than others.
Okay. So like they might break down into something else or just related chemicals with slightly different molecular compositions or something.
Can discharge a pungent smog and irritant poison gas. Ooh, that sounds fun.
So they have a section in the front of the EPA list of lists that sometimes when new things are added, they explain a little bit more. So the non-phenol category covers 6 specific chemicals identified by chemical name and CAS number. These are included in the CAS order listing on this consolidated list. All those chemicals belonging to these categories are reportable under section 313 by category rather than by individual chemical.
So it's more like a category than individual chemicals, thank you.
Yeah, and
That makes
thus
sense.
the N530.
And that N usually indicates that it's like a category
It's
instead of
entire
an
grouping.
individual. Okay, thanks.
So maybe there's just some mixtures, including non-phenol, is that the 6? Confused? Yeah.
So we vote on this now.
I'm convinced, yes.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to say or ask?
discussion?
Hmm?
What is it? I want to sound formal. Yeah, so sorry, you're up. You're the.
Oh boy, now I gotta remember. I'll give for me to leave my writing notes behind. Let's see. I move that we, or, no. Hold on. Can I get the verbiage again?
So, Evan moved,
Mhm.
Nicole seconded to recommend to the city manager that the chemicals be added to the list. And then now you say.
Then bring it to a vote, you say all in favor.
There we go.
All
Thank
in
you.
favor of adding or recommending these two chemicals to the city manager for addition to the right no list? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay, so I will forward that recommendation on. And just know that as part of the recommendation to the city manager, the Tompkins Board is required to also identify the reporting threshold and material accounting threshold, which neither of these are EHS, BPPTs, or radioactive. So these are the reporting thresholds and material accounting thresholds. So I will include those as well in your recommendation to the city manager and keep you informed. So it's a really long process, and it gets put in the queue of all the other administrative orders. So we should have enough time to get it in place before 2018 reports start on January 1st, 2019. All right.
So next discussion item, or is the reference documents for program website. So when I took this, I was thinking, I actually suggested the first reference and Joe suggested the other ones. I was thinking in terms of we have this list of chemicals, what do they mean? Without looking it up, a lot of the names mean absolutely nothing to most people. And then Joe was thinking in terms of sort of the history and operations of the program. But if there are other reference documents, and I was looking, I suggested the NIOSH website because it's a CDC thing, and so it's not advocacy, it's not industry, it's sort of third party, reasonably well instructed. They've got a wide data set, and some useful information. The downside to them is that they, like I mentioned before, that they're aimed at the worker, and so the exposure rates are for 8 hours, that sort of thing. It'd be nice to have something that would be more aimed at residential exposure scenarios, but I don't know many of those.
Yeah,
But
like
it's
the World,
you guys.
Yeah.
with the World Health Organization or some other like big, like United Nations or some, I don't know, even a U.S. governmental agency that isn't partisan have thresholds for outside the workplace or different. I don't know.
No, I'm just gonna pull my notebook out.
So possibly some homework.
I have
studies.
I appreciate you doing that extra work on like looking for, it's like CDC source, something that, people could go to, across the spectrum and to look for. But I hear that discrepancy of like, if it's just for work, then it's maybe not supplemental or enough for what most people might want.
Right, well, my suspicion is the levels would be inappropriate because the exposure times would be much longer, but.
But I think what you're also saying is that it's environmental toxicity, right? So if it's disposed of improperly, what's going to happen to the environment? Is that what you're saying, or like, is it? Did I miss that? Misinterpret that?
Well, the exposure scenarios that I should be looking at will be for a worker in a plant or something like that, as opposed to somebody outside or somebody in a residential setting, right, and being exposed to it for long periods of time, right, and so the
So
concentration.
you're saying that it would be better to have longer?
Because part of our goal is to inform the community at large, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a good place to start, I think, but I think there may be other tools out there, and I was hoping that y'all could.
Well, yeah, what about EJ Screen? Do you guys Is anybody familiar with EJ Screen here? It's a tool, it's an EPA tool, yeah, totally. That's the first thing kind of coming to my mind as Mark discusses this topic. It's a tool that people can use to map things in their neighborhood. And I think there is a way you can plug in like chemicals and things like that into it. But it might be worth some time for us to, spend poking around at it and seeing if this is an appropriate tool for the page. There's also other super fun sites.
Well, those are,
Might be for like workers.
well, so, what I've seen so far is, okay, here you are, here's where things are.
Mhm.
I'm interested in perhaps providing some information about, well, now that you know that there is
Mhm.
tetrafluoroethylene in your neighborhood, or there's an emitter nearby,
Mhm.
well, what is tetrafluoroethylene? I mean, I see
I see.
You go to Google and then the first site you hit is somebody who's selling it and therefore it's the greatest thing ever. And the next site you hit is somebody who thinks it's,
Mhm.
Worth it.
Yeah.
that it was invented by aliens
Mhm.
after the Roswell crash. Or,
That's technically true, completely accurate.
You see where I'm going, right?
No, I get what you're
Like, give
saying.
them- give them
We need
useful
to have,
information as opposed
we need
to-
to have actual information, and you're right, there is a trove of knowledge out there. And I'm happy to dig up, just to go through all my notes and dig up some stuff for you, if you think that's appropriate.
Would this be something that we might consider putting on the next agenda for additional resources prior to deciding on what to put on the site? Or, I don't know, because I like the EPA because it's the original program was based off of EPA's toxic rights. No, so it kind of is in that same, it's the same program. But then I hear what you're saying as far as what is the chemical, what is the public outreach for understanding what this chemical is, so you're not, just having you're not just showing a map with red dots and people, freaking out.
Right, and just because it's a chemical doesn't mean it's toxic. And there's different levels of toxicity, there's different types of toxicity.
There's an interesting picture we've got. It lists a series of chemical names, and it's quite unintelligible. And it's the contents of an apple. And if you didn't know better, you'd be freaking out because it's right. But it's an apple.
Yeah.
And so that's my thought there is let's provide some background so you can look at it and make an informed decision or understand what you're looking at.
Mhm.
Are those the MSDSs that you
Yeah.
access? Is that what it is? Through the CDC site?
No, it's not a full MSDS. Actually, Joe, can you step into one? Yeah, ask them. There we go. And so it has some physical characteristics. And then you see there's an exposure limit section right there. And of course, you still need some knowledge to understand what's being said, but at least
Right.
you're being pointed at something where
Well, right, how do you know how many ppms you're being exposed to? Yeah.
And maybe some people might not know what ppm means.
right.
But that's,
The MSDS is useful too, I don't know.
but that's a lot of what's on MSDS, right?
Mhm.
That's
Well, at least it's
section.
got the synopsis where it says, this is
Section 3, section.
how do you handle it or what the risks are.
Yeah, I like the idea of adding the CDC site and potentially discussing the MSDS, the addition of the MSDS page. But for right now, yeah, I mean, the CDC site seems appropriate for the time being. And I think it's unbiased. I mean, you can look up facts, like Mark was saying, on this site and not get this wide range of things popping up in your Google search bar, like, this is the craziest chemical in the world.
So I just want to point out, hold
I
on.
heard of that EJ screen, that's cool.
On our website already, there's a section down here for additional resources, and years ago, it was decided to reference the EPA's TRI program. I should save that link still. Oh, okay. You know, so that could be a place that we put it, or we can take that one away and replace it with other things. But I just wanted to also make you guys aware of what's already there. Because that'll be part of the decision too.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't hurt to include like, you know, a number of, I mean, if it's not too long a list, but just like certain key pieces. I like that the TRI is still there just because like, you know, we base a lot of the, our lists off of it, and maybe thresholds are different, so they might be able to see some things over others. But it seems like, I feel like we don't have enough information about like, what CDC looks like is really good, but then like is workers, and then EJ screen sounds like we have to find specific places to send people. So to me it seems like a homework piece, and then come back and then like see if we can narrow down the things that we all.
But for now, are we talking about adding these 5 references that you put under item 2? We're talking about adding those right now, we're gonna vote on that?
Well, I think we're discussing right now. And,
With that, and that's the end goal, right? Is that we discuss these items and then try to vote today or push it until next time? I'm just curious. Because I don't see anything wrong with going ahead and adding all these now. We're voting for it. I mean, what would be an argument against that?
The only issue I've got is like ORS, the references is, I mean, it's repetitive on user fees. And it seems kind of redundant to have a link to, that says the same thing essentially on 2 different things. The other parts that I see on here is, and then again, recent fees ordinance is another reference that's basically saying the same thing as the other 2. The recent annual report, no problem with that one. NIOSH, no problem. And one of those 3 that more or less all encompassing instead of having repetitive links that basically say the same thing.
Which ones are you saying are
Yeah,
repetitive?
The Eugene code, I'm sorry, the ORS, 2 ORS is there, the fees ordinance, and the Eugene code. Let's see. Yeah, the Eugene code is, first header is hazardous substance user fees. 453.402 is fees and how they're collected. And then 453.37 is limitations on right to know and fees. So I don't know if that needs to be done.
Well, there are some nuanced differences.
Right. Oh, I totally understand that, but
And
if you look at, if people look at headers first, yeah, they're seeing fees. Well, I won't read that.
Like the
I
ORS
understand.
453.37 is the header is limitations on local community right to know regulatory programs, and then it talks about like the program, and then there is the fees are mentioned
Right.
in it.
So I think the issue is that the code is actually the original, it's
The charter.
the charter, where are we?
The charter's not on here because
Oh.
we actually added that last year.
Oh, yeah. So these are all, that's right. So the charter's online, and that's the original program, but then it's been altered through several sources through the
Okay.
years. So I think that that's what this is aiming to do, correct me if I'm wrong, was to make sure that everyone can access all the information about it, because if you're just reading the charter, you wouldn't understand the program. I think one of the things is that maybe labeling these differently so that people know what they're getting somehow. Didn't you come up with a one-pager history?
Yes. I do.
Yes, that's
I do have
what I
that.
think is that helps the most, at least, to be able to go through something like this.
So link to the one pager that has in it like additional resources if they're wanting to dig a little further.
that.
No, yeah.
So I think to get to Crystal's question, my hope would be we have a chance to talk about what we would like to add as reference documents, figure out what it should look like on the website, and then of course the third question is how do we implement it, because I assume there's IT questions and stuff like that that may come up, right? And so I guess we're in part one right now, which is what are we putting on there, right? And it kind of falling into two, because it sounds like it might be interesting to do the one pager and then link in some of these documents into the one pager.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That seems logical.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is to be transparent without confusing the website users,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we can manage that.
And so I just kind of want to give everybody a little history because kind of Mark and I were the only ones involved in the conversation. This topic was selected as our second item to talk about today, and Mark asked me to provide some ideas of what I think it meant, to bring to you to get your brains working on what reference documents would be. And he presented the CDC site and what I think of reference documents that I think would be useful based on all the questions that I've received over the years. This is what I thought of. So there's plenty more out there.
Oh, yeah.
But, these are just ideas. Nobody's necessarily suggesting this is what it has to be.
You guys have other ideas for things?
Well, there's a lot of websites out there, even local, state level websites that are more to the public instead of the workforce. I mean, there was something brought up about SDS and being referenced. That would be a total nightmare because each manufacturer has to create their own SDS and which one you're going to use, and they're not all the same. And so, what's the most accurate way to approach it? But on a state level, area level, there are like air quality, water quality issues that are brought up. That this is what the federal limit is for this. This is the state level for this. Those can be referenced. I can't think of the websites right off the top of my head, but I look at them like every other day. It seems like, but they're there. And I can do more research on that and get the links. And then I don't know if you want to bring that up for the next meeting, or should I, once I find them again and get a good link, send that to Joe for dispersion?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
That way we could all look it over on our own time.
Okay.
Like if it's like the DEQ site or some place that you use.
Yeah, there's tons of them.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, I think that would have to be used for anyone here.
Yeah.
If you come up with a site that you find really interesting,
Uh-huh.
then she'll pass it out.
Okay, that sounds good.
So am I sensing a homework assignment? for
Yes.
this?
Yeah. Due date of next board meeting.
Sounds fun.
Currently, it looks like we sort of have two things going on. One is a sort of list of the understanding what we're looking at part, and then there's a second part of understanding the program itself. I guess one could be just here's some useful, handy. The other possibility is we have those lists of chemicals to actually provide links, which would be a heck of a lot more coding work. It's not something like an intern will have to do. And yeah.
So you're thinking like maybe a background this specific to the toxic sport, and then another just general, like these are what the chemicals are, here's how to learn more about them prior to, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there's a community educational component to it. It's not just about the program, which is important, but it's also about this, like, what is this stuff, and
Why are we providing all this information? So I guess that's part two. And then the third question is, how do we get it out? And I know we eliminated the IT item on the budget. What would be required to get some, I guess we're looking at a series of links and some modifications to verbiage to one web page.
So on top of what you're saying, I think it might make sense to maybe prioritize a list, right? So in terms of like what might actually be most likely to be encountered by the public, right? Because depending on how things are disposed of or how much of a quantity of a chemical, it may or may not have likelihood to actually affect. Just because a company has a chemical doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna get out there, or that it's not gonna be, you know, that it's gonna be in the environment, or it might make sense to prioritize based on, oh, this is a pesticide, right, so it's going to be sprayed, it's going to be in the environment, versus, you know, 3 mils of some organic chemical that is properly disposed of. Does that make sense? Is that? Because then we don't have to go through all the chemicals. It's, you know, it's just more like, okay, this is a real risk versus, you know, this is just something that is being used in a synthetic process that is less likely to be.
In our reporting that we do
You do that.
on all the chemicals, we have items that are emitted to air, discharged potable, you know, wastewater, stuff like that. Then falls to the manufacturer, really,
Yeah,
because, all right, we are discharging this, I mean, this information is available already.
right.
Like if I said I put so many pounds of zinc down the drain each year, that information is available. What is the public gonna do with that? That's my question. I mean, like I said, it's there, but they may not understand, okay, if I have this whatever item going down in the wastewater, or I'm discharging it to air, what's the effect on the community? And aside from the reporting aspect that we do, what else would we be required to do?
Oh, yeah, no, that's not what, I guess I'm not being super.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying if we're gonna go through and actually submit to the public a list of information about certain chemicals, maybe we wanna keep it specific to the most likely encountered chemicals, that's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Above a certain threshold.
Sure, or whatever.
Or
I think
above,
it's
Nicole, I think we're only providing background information
Yeah.
to people. We're not
Okay.
going to do anything specific.
Oh, okay.
All right, and that's,
All right, yeah,
I
that's.
think
I
this
guess
is just
I'm
like a
confused.
background about the
Just about
topic,
the toxic.
the history, and then just some access to some already public sites that can, people, if they want to do more research.
So you're not talking about, because I think the NIOSH thing kind of threw me off. So you're saying just link to the NIOSH site?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were saying we'll go through the NIOSH site,
Oh.
find all these
my
different,
God.
and I was like, that sounds terrible. That sounds like a lot of work. So all I was saying is rather than do that, let's do a few, but never mind, sorry. I didn't understand what you
Yeah, I
did.
think it's,
Okay.
More clear.
no, I think as long as like we stick to just like focusing on the charter of like our small scope within
Got
this
it.
larger process,
Okay,
and then
that
just
makes
like
sense.
let them, you know,
Sorry,
generically,
I had you.
no, we're all, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
So another thing I wanted to point out is, and I was trying to remember where this was before. When you click on the details for individual chemical down here at the bottom, it links to scorecard.org,
Oh, yeah.
which I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. So that's providing some, and per chemical, it's linked up, so you don't have to type in the CAS number or the chemical name. And it talks about human health hazards, environmental hazards, the ranking, use profile, and the regulatory coverage.
It sounds essentially like what we were talking about.
So that's what, so this is something that we already have on our website.
But a
It's
little bit hard to
kind of
find.
buried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what scorecard is.
But the good news is that the people don't have to like type in a number somewhere else, or,
Yeah.
that would be a coding thing.
Joe, could you go back to the initial
Yes.
form before they go to the? Because I think as long as like,
This?
okay, oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that like that link, it says link to an independent website for health effects information. Okay, so as long as they can see that, they can just click there and then go to the next thing.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but.
I'm wondering if it'll be, so my current thing is, sort of at the higher level, have here's some history reference documents, here's some references related to chemicals. NIOSH, and maybe even just at a higher level on the scorecard site, so that they can go to the scorecard site and then type in normal phenol and see what happens from there. But how much IT, I'm sort of drifting to 3. I'm still thinking about 3, part 3, which is, getting it on. Maybe 4. Is this something, if we've managed to figure out what we want, is this something that can be done without having to allocate budget to it? Or is this something that we would have to wait, we'd have to allocate and then wait for the budget to come in before we could make a change to the website?
Well, it depends on what you guys want. Like, if you're just talking about within our web pages, linking to a different web page, that's something I can set up. But then it shouldn't take me too much time. Most of the time will be spent at the topics board meeting. You guys decided where you want it on our website and what we want it to say. So that, but I'm not going to say, yes, it's not going to take any budget, specific separate amount of budget IT when I haven't heard everything that you guys
Right.
want yet.
But so what I'm hearing is if it's reasonably small, we should be able to make it happen. If it gets,
Yes.
we start getting fancy, then it's not gonna-
Yes, yes, which, coming up next month, we'll start talking about budget for next fiscal year, so.
Should have a big button where they can donate.
We can't accept donations.
Okay, we got, okay.
Fee supported program only.
Donation to like my name.
To your name.
Yeah, just, I'll take care of it. So we'll think about this a little more and then we'll discuss additional resources next time.
So I think we've got some homework for just about everybody in terms of looking up other sites. I think we've got 2, the scorecard and NIOSH. If folks could come up with some other, and EJ Watch.
EJ Screen.
Or EJ Screen,
Yeah.
sorry. But if other folks have other ones they'd like to come up with. I think the history one's pretty well nailed down. Is that?
Here, I'll,
History of the toxics board.
let me bring it
Yeah,
up.
we have that on the website, right?
Well, okay, I'll show you what we have on the website, that's a great. Okay, so we have overview, and then background. It provides some history, but when I hear Andre say it, this is what came to my mind. This is so small.
Okay, yeah, this one. This is just like the one pager that's it's a synopsis.
Yeah, and just talks about the basics of the program, why we're unique, what the requirements are, who's excluded, and then significant dates and actions. So in here is where I can do some linking
Oh, yeah.
That would be spectacular.
to the code.
This answers a lot of questions that folks who just read and then.
Yeah.
And especially for the reporters that are
Yeah.
involved, I know you're going through a lot of this with them.
Yeah, and then, like the specific fee ordinance, what I was thinking was on this overview page. Where it is. We talk about what the current approved fee is. Yeah, I could just reference the ordinance number, because that's updated every year, and that's a specific task that the Toxics Board takes care of. So, anyway, just an idea. I think it's great.
So we might link that one pager on the website for them to access, okay?
Or that one page would come in HTML with links in it added on.
Oh, yeah.
Is that, is my understanding right, it would come in the HTML
Okay.
page with links to the other reference documents?
Because she refers to these, yeah, in there.
And then, so that would be one page, and then there would be another link saying, or another at the top level, another thing, helpful or information about chemicals, and then scorecard and NIOSH and
MSDS.
yeah.
Something.
Yeah, like that, simple, easy to read with additional resources.
Does this seem reasonable?
Yeah,
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 that's
totally.
great.
more than reasonable.
So do you guys want to walk through the pages so I understand like where you want this stuff? Are we doing that now?
It's not even 4:30 yet, so I think, does anybody have any, let's continue, yeah.
Okay. All right, so the first page that comes up is about the toxics board. There's a volunteer opportunity.
We would put like a history link or some kind
On this page?
of, or some, I don't know what the heading would be for, I don't know what would make sense to.
Are you talking about on this page?
Yeah, or on that side, on that blue sidebar or someplace where they would go to that. Maybe I'm confused.
Okay, well, we'll get to the overview page in just a minute. I just want to take one step at a time, so I understand what I need to do next. So then last year, or maybe it was the year before, because time's been going really fast, we added a link to the charter. So, this doesn't have to stay this way. You guys can change this to a reference document, webpage, or we can keep the charter separate, or make it like, related laws, so we can have the code, the charter and the code and the ORS, because those are the four primary laws that govern the program and how we operate. And these are just ideas to get the conversation started.
It seems like the charter is like pretty complicated and people wouldn't necessarily want to dig in unless they're like going, like they might want to start off more generally. I don't know. Maybe some people dig into the charter now.
Yeah, people do.
I'm just thinking that having the charter alone is a little confusing. That's, I think, where this discussion came from. So just having the charter alone is a little confusing because there's so much more that has come after it. So when people just read the charter, there's some confusion. So I think that I was thinking that if we could either put that under the overview or into this one pager that you have somehow, not just having it by itself. Either changing that highest category of City of Eugene charter to like toxics board. Well, I guess we already have overview, so, or background, one of those, history.
What do other people think?
I agree with that. I think that's the big one.
I'm sorry, I apologize, where's the overview page?
It's the third one down.
Oh.
Yeah, we might shorten that title to overview, program overview. Because that took me a second to catch too.
And so you get here and it's called program background,
Mm-hmm.
or is that different?
Which goes to
Oh,
a little bit
that's
more
fine.
historical information.
Oh, like
For people who want to dig
deeper.
down, yeah.
So I think the page structure there, it's just a question of where do we insert pieces, right?
Could you make an extra resource tab in that blue box, that blue column to the left?
Yeah, I can change any of this.
Yeah, well, how do we feel about just adding a resources
Yeah.
tab so that
Yeah.
people can click on that? I find that's really common with a lot of modern websites.
Okay, and then was there some suggestion for eliminating the Eugene Toxic Right to Know, just doing program overview and then program reports?
Yeah, that's probably good.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think?
Well, considering I looked right past it. That would be a good thing, yes. Okay.
Or just toxics board.
Well, I think program overview and program reports is suggested, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does program overview and City of Eugene charter, could those be combined? Would it be useful to combine them? And I think the answer is yes.
I think I would pull that charter down into program overview.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause
and link to it through the one pager that Joe has put together.
Okay, so can I back up?
Yes.
Am I adding a resources tab?
That's a good idea.
I think
Yes,
that's a
please.
good idea.
Okay, and what is going in there?
We'll discuss. it.
We'll talk about that
Okay.
next meeting.
That's our homework, right?
Yeah.
The
I'm
list-
coming up
list
with
of,
MSTS sheet, I was like, that's a lot.
Okay.
Et cetera.
Got it, okay, add a resource tab, all right. Got it, okay, and so move City of Eugene Charter under overview.
Yes, please.
Okay, and,
And that's where we can put the one page history, like,
so I'll create a separate tab called a fact sheet, or,
What is different between the program background and your one pager? You know?
This is a super mini summary. Oh, hold on. Super mini summary, program background, and that previous page we were just looking at. There's a lot more details on the fact sheet.
But do you think that if the fact sheet covers what you have here, then I would leave it.
replace.
Although I love that audio file.
Yeah,
Well, no, the audio file can still stay there.
Yeah.
I don't have that in the, that doesn't do good on a piece of paper. I hand out to people.
this looks like a paragraph synopsis, you know, it's like, it's even shorter and then.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll rename this to background.
Or program overview, or did you say?
So this is under program overview. So I would see a couple of here, the program background on the left is good, and then we had, what's the other thing we're gonna put?
This one. So this,
Well, back on program history.
was this where the charter was gonna go, or?
Yes, the charter would go in here.
So it would be the program background, city charter. Would you have the associated documents as a third tab at this level, or would you have the associated documents just linked into the brief history? I would opt for linking into the brief history myself.
Yeah, me
So-
too. I think, because I think it's confusing having it by itself. I think that's what I came here, that's all I had read, because I didn't know, because I couldn't find the other pieces. So I think just having the charter isn't just, well, confusing.
So would you like add that one page overview, like not as a link, but actually just in the script that they initially see and with links within the,
So this is how I'm interpreting it. I'm going to take the language on both sides of this fact sheet and make that the new
Overview.
overview page. And then within that, link to the documents like the charter, the code, the ORS.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, that will work out quite well.
That's what I think is
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
And then take away that separate page up here at the top left of the charter. Just completely get rid of that because it's going to be the link within that new improved overview page. But then my question is, do we still keep the background? Because then at that point, this page will be somewhat repetitive, except for the audio file. I can just add the audio file to the bottom of the overview page.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or if you think, I don't know, if there's anything in here that is not redundant, like if there's essential information in here that doesn't.
I think, Joe, without being able to read it real closely, I think we're gonna have to just rely on you making sure that what's in here is in your one pager, which I'm sure it probably is. And then if it is, then we don't need the different levels. It could just be the one page with the links to the things inside of it. And then the audio file. Does that sound okay? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, we don't need your balance.
No, we can empower you to make reasonable decisions.
Okay, I will make sure that all information is included from both. Because I have to say that it's been a while since I've read this page.
All the other boards are gonna be jealous of our page. They're gonna check
So
It
let's
just would be a great page too for when, in the future, when people are applying for the board, just to be able to send them there. And for the reporters, just really, it would be really nice just to have it all just sitting in one space that people would go to. I don't think it sounds like it's too complicated to do.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll just have to type that into platform for the website, but yeah, I can do that.
Shorten those two names a little bit.
Yep, we'll take care of that.
Can I make one more suggestion?
Yeah,
That the program overview goes first. Is that possible?
at the top.
Yeah, and then to members of meeting information, then program reports, then resources, then feedback.
Yeah, I like that.
That works.
That's awesome.
so
If,
program overview, members meeting, reports, and feedback.
Resources and feedback.
Oh, yeah.
That way there's a reasonable flow and progression. Right?
Yeah. The contact information for the whole. And then we'll come back about what we put in the additional information column.
Does that sound good? Everybody?
That sounds good.
Awesome.
So here's the reports page. What about this section under here? Additional resources. Do we want to keep this here, or we'll talk about that next
And
time?
we can include that in
Yeah, the
the
resources.
make
resources.
that in the other two resources. Which we might call chemical resources.
For outside resources, just to differentiate it from the actual toxic sport information.
What did everybody think about that?
I'm indifferent. I think resources suffices.
Yeah, so,
It's simple
Yeah.
and,
It is.
because we might add other kinds of resources in the future.
Yeah.
And we can always change it too. So I'm in, whatever you guys decide is best.
Resources now, and
Yeah.
then we could easily do something like chemicals,
Mhm.
chemical information sites, something else sites.
Yeah.
Would that work?
Totally.
Or we can keep it as additional resources. I'm just trying to think of it not being something where like people are maybe can get help or, especially if we're gonna have, one of the things I was thinking about was the idea of hiring toxicologists, that sort of thing. I don't know, but I think it's fine, resources.
Oh,
Look up, landing.
Oh, is it?
it sounded up close.
There was smoke coming up just a little bit ago, so I'm sure they're doing something fun.
Yeah,
Training.
that's the drill field back there, so
Okay.
all kinds of fun stuff happens over there.
So, things going forward, right? You'll have homework and you're trying to find other sites. I assume you can sort of have these prototyped for the next meeting. Was this something you would make changes to the live site, or is this something that you have a prototype and then we can look at it and then move it to the live site?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think, I'll have to ask.
Yeah. Sometimes when I've done it, it's like you open it up, you like edit the page, and then you add whatever you want, and then you publish, and then it becomes live.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna be having somebody show me how to do some of this stuff, so yeah, that'll be the first question. Yeah, that way, so it's gonna stay this way until I have you guys review it.
So next month we can look at sort of the prototype, or either, hopefully the prototype of the revisions we've talked about at this meeting. And then be able to just say, hey, can you please add these we'll discuss the various options we'll bring in, add that in, and then hopefully vote to bring that to the completion. Does that seem like a reasonable path? Does that seem reasonable?
So if it's the case that it can't be just a prototype, or it'll just be the new website, we'll look at it that way, or do we want to wait?
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
I mean, these aren't huge changes.
No.
I'm not worried about it
No.
at all. I
No.
think if she publishes it and
Yeah.
it looks like we notice something, it won't be major. So,
Yeah, kind of good change to
Yeah,
that.
sounds good.
Yeah, because there's like a history, a version history,
Uh-huh,
so I can always bring the old one back
sounds good.
if it looks horrible.
The retro, we can go with the retro version.
When I come to- Okay,
This is
so
only a positive too.
Yeah.
am I bringing a prototype or am I just gonna do the work and then?
I trust
Do it.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
where-
do it.
where to go.
You can make the changes, yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
You got it.
Okay, but just know that that's gonna wait till after I update the chemical list
Mhm.
and do the process to get the city manager your recommendation on chemicals. And then for November, oh, I'm sorry, what am I saying? Never mind. September, June, not October. Hazardous substance trafficking instructions will be our next required discussion time topic. I was getting a schedule, sorry. So I'll be sending that out sometime next month.
Sounds good.
I just don't want to leave too much on this sort of project with knowing that November and the project instructions coming up and some of the other budgetary items coming up. To get this polished off.
Yeah. Also in October, I should be able to send you some preliminary budget information to start reviewing in preparation for the discussions.
So when were the budget discussions going, on the docket or?
Well, if you flip the agenda, so November, December is when we start reviewing preliminary budget information and looking at the work plan and what the fees might be looking like.
Could be, because we lost 2, but then we gained like.
Still working on onboarding those businesses.
Okay.
But we will likely have a few more
Okay.
to add. So I do have a question. What was the decision on the annual report? Sorry, going back to the website discussion. I remember Don's comments, but where, are folks interested in having a copy of that on the website? And where do you think that would go?
Maybe you have the update on the fee. That's the already. That's at the bottom,
Yeah.
program costs.
That's where we were gonna link to the ordinance, the annual ordinance.
What, so I would say either there or under where it says meeting and members.
Yeah, meeting and members, the meeting notes one makes a lot of sense too. Could you do it off to the side a little, like have a special place for the annual report? Or are you talking just adding it, having its own little section at the bottom of this page?
Is this where you're talking?
I was, yeah, just sort of right.
This is like the format template, so I don't know if I can add a little box off to the side.
I'm always thinking the annual report's important enough to have its own.
Either its own at the top level or part of the overview, probably one of the early items in the overview
Yep.
would be my suggestions.
That just gets updated every year, so.
Where do we keep the meeting minutes? Can you remind me?
Oh, meeting minutes are under, I'm sorry, did you ask me that question? I thought you
Yeah.
were making a comment about, so members in meeting.
Yeah, so down
Information.
here, okay, so why not just add another section right underneath agendas, or right above agendas and minutes, and feature your annual report there and update it and then move it down for past reports? Or does that
And
not make
most
sense?
recent report, then you
Yeah.
all,
Yeah,
so right ahead of agenda minutes, you're thinking?
I mean, it is important, and
Yeah.
I think that that would be conveniently located for people to pull it up if they needed to.
So the annual report would be under members and meeting information.
I mean, that's where my head
Yeah.
thinks to go if I was on the website looking for this info.
Yeah.
I would go to meeting information for that report. But what others think, what, what are your
That
instincts?
sounds good.
Okay. Mark, I hope your foot gets better soon.
Well, I'm just enjoying the sound of the rain because that's why my toe is really bit heavily bandaged right now because I dropped a storm cover grate on my toe on Friday.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I'm going to be going to Slocum for surgery on Friday,
Oh,
but I was looking those out to put new fabrics in because it's about to start raining.
Yeah.
So I think I timed that reasonably well. Well,
Yeah.
I timed those that I got done, and then my coworker was finishing off the job.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
So anyway, so sort of members of the meeting, does anybody else have any opinions as to where they would like the annual report? It sounds like we're leaning towards members of the meeting.
Joe is offering, I think, showing us this thing for under reports. But
Okay.
that's different idea, isn't it? It's about the
Well, it's about the data.
data.
You know, and again, we can change the name of any of these.
So at present, the annual report is not listed on our site. Okay. But we have a program reports section, so it's just a question of what section we want to put the program report in.
I mean, I've heard from a few people.
Yeah. So the program reports, because the report is the same name within.
Well, except the program reports are very definitely the reporting companies.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so this is not about the reporting companies, but about the internal state of
Okay.
Toxics Board, which leads me to agree with the members of meetings.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. It's more appropriate to that section. I get that.
So generally speaking about the program, this is what the reports
Okay.
are all about.
Yeah.
And everything on that page. So, I'm sorry, members of meeting information. Sorry. All right, so where do you guys like Crystal's suggestion above agenda and minutes? And in the same format, most recent annual report, and then we can have a historical list of other ones.
I like it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Anybody not like it? I think we're pretty good on that.
All right.
So I think we have our tasking for our next meeting.
Yeah.
Both Joe and the rest of us. Hopefully that isn't too much for you.
I'm sure I can handle it.
I can script HTML, the best of them.
Yeah.
I miss HTML. Yeah.
But I think we should leave the reference document section. That puts us to the last item, which is the future agenda items. Is there something we need to be covering in October? Or is it November, the hazardous tracking review?
Yeah, October is when I usually send you guys the first round of preliminary budget, work plan, and super preliminary fee information, just to start getting your brain in gear for end of the year tasks. Because with the holidays, and meeting in November, and a meeting or two in January, all needs to be wrapped up, including the annual report by the end of January, essentially. So the time goes really fast, but there's a lot to do.
My question before moving forward was the part about the business, the newly identified businesses exemption process and form. Maybe this was before my time stepping onto the board, but I thought that that was already decided and approved on a while ago, was it not? Or does it still need attention from us?
So this question comes up quite often. We did spend a lot of time revising, implementing, and creating a form for exemption for reporting businesses. However, the topic was brought up for the board to consider putting in a separate exemption process for non-reporting businesses and businesses that are newly identified. But as it stands right now, exempting, so any newly identified business into the program starts as a non-reporting business. So it would be the same exemption process and form for both of these, but it needs to be different than the reporting businesses. However, as it stands now, it would be in violation of the Oregon revised statutes and the Oregon Court of Appeals ruling on the original lawsuit if we were to exempt non-reporting businesses from the program. And so this would require a legal and legislative process.
Oh, okay.
So yes, we have created and implemented
Okay,
an exemption process, but not for this category of businesses.
okay. Thanks.
And what is this is non sequitur, but it's just items for consideration. As far as the map on the website, are we making progress towards providing public access to reporting businesses?
That is something the tax board still needs to talk
Okay.
about. I got the digitized version,
Awesome.
but it's on the agenda item list. Right?
So, yes, so we could, I'd like to finish the one we're on, and then
that
we
sounds
can
good.
make that number
Okay.
two on the stack. I don't. just-
No, I appreciate it. No, I appreciate that, yeah.
So maybe that will, unless somebody objects, maybe that will be the next thing to talk about after we get this resource document or resources thing handled.
Sounds logical to me.
Is there anybody else would like to feel free? Okay, I have some of those for you, like statements. Nicole,
Meeting is adjourned.
the meeting is adjourned. And,
I second that motion.
52.
Sorry.
Great job, Mark.